Wuthering Heights, Chapter 21, Part 1. We had sad work with little Kathy that day. She rose in high glee, eager to join her cousin, and such passionate tears and lamentations followed that news of his departure that Edgar himself was obliged to soothe her by affirming he should come back soon. He added, however, if I can get him. There were no hopes of that. This promise poorly pacified her, but time was more potent, and though still at intervals she inquired of her father when Linton would return, before she did see him again his features had waxed so dim in her memory that she did not recognize him. When I chanced to encounter the housekeeper of Wuthering Heights in paying business visits to Gimmerton, I used to ask how the young master got on, for he lived almost as secluded as Catherine herself, and was never to be seen. I could gather from her that he continued in weak health and was as tiresome and was a tiresome inmate. She said Mr. Heathcliff seemed to dislike him ever longer and worse, though he took some trouble to conceal it. He had an antipathy to the sound of his voice, and should not do at all with his sitting in the same room with him many minutes together. There seldom passed much talk between them. Linton learnt his lessons and spent his evenings in a small apartment they called the parlor, or else lay in bed all day, for he was constantly getting coughs and colds and aches and pains of some sort. And I never knew such a faint-hearted creature, added the woman, nor one so careful of his'n. He will go on if I leave the window open a bit late in the evenings. Oh, it's killing! A breath of night air! And he must have a fire in the middle of the summer, and Joseph's bacca pipe is poison, and he must always have sweets and dainties, and always milk, milk forever, heeding not how the rest of us are pinched in winter. And there he'll sit wrapped in his furred coat in his chair by the fire, and some toast and water on top slop, and hob to sip at. And if Hareton for pity comes to amuse him, Hareton is not bad natured, though he's rough, they're sure to part, one swearing and the other crying. I believe the master would relish Earnshaw's thrashing him to a mummy if he were not his son, and I'm certain he would be fit to turn him out of doors if he knew half the nursing he gives Hislin. But then he won't go into danger of temptation. He never enters the parlor, and should Linton show those ways in the house where he is, he sends him upstairs directly. I divined from this account that utter lack of sympathy had rendered young Heathcliff selfish and disagreeable. If he were not so originally, and my interest in him consequently decayed, though still I was moved with a sense of grief at his loss, and a wish that he had been left with us. Mr. Edgar encouraged me to gain information. He thought a great deal about him, I fancy, and would have run some risk to see him, and he told me once to ask the housekeeper whether he ever came into the village. She said he only had been twice on horseback, accompanying his father, and both times he pretended to be quite knocked up for 3 or 4 days afterwards. That housekeeper left, if I recollect rightly, 2 years after he came, and another whom I did not know was her successor. She lives there still. Time wore on at the Grange in its former pleasant way till Miss Cathy reached 16. On the anniversary of her birth, we never manifested any signs of rejoicing, because it's also the anniversary of my late mistress's death. Her father invariably spent that day alone in the library, and walked at dusk as far as Gimmerton Kirkyard, where he would frequently prolong his stay beyond midnight. Therefore Catherine was thrown on her own resources for amusement. This 12th of March was a beautiful spring day, and when her father had retired, my young lady came down dressed for going out, and she said she had asked to have a ramble on the edge of the moors with me. And Mr. Linton had given her leave if we went only a short distance and were back within the hour. So make haste, Ellen, she cried. I know where I wish to go, where a colony of moor game are settled. I want to see whether they have made their nests yet. That must be a good distance up, I answered. They don't breed on the edge of the moor. No, it's not, she said. I've gone very near with Papa. I put on my bonnet and sallied out, thinking nothing more of the matter. She bounded before me and returned to my side, and was off again like a young greyhound. And at first I found plenty of entertainment in listening to the larks singing far and near, and enjoying the sweet warm sunshine, and watching her, my pet and my delight, with her golden ringlets flying loose behind, and her bright cheek as soft and pure in its bloom as a wild rose, and her eyes radiant with cloudless pleasure. She was a happy creature and an angel in those days. It's a pity she could not be content. Well, said I, where are your moor game, Miss Cathy? We should be at them. The Grange Park fences are a great way off now. Oh, a little further, only a little further, Ellen, was her answer continually. Climb to that hillock, past that bank, and by the time you reach the other side, I shall have raised the birds. But there were only so many hillocks and banks to climb and pass, and at length I began to be weary, and told her we must halt and retrace our steps. I shouted to her as she had outstripped me a long way. She either did not hear or did not regard, for she still sprang on, and I was compelled to follow. Finally, she dived into a hollow, and before I came in sight of her again, she was 2 miles nearer Wuthering Heights than her own home, and I beheld a couple of persons arrest her. One of them, I felt convinced, was Mr. Heathcliff himself. Cathy had been caught in the fact of plundering, or at least hunting out the nests of the grouse. The heights were Heathcliff's land, and he was reproving the poacher. I've neither taken any nor found any, she said, as I toiled to them, expanding her hands in corroboration of the statement. I didn't mean to take them, but Papa told me there were quantities up here, and I wished to see the eggs. Heathcliff glanced at me with an ill-meaning smile, expressing his acquaintance with the party, and consequently his malevolence towards it, and demanded who Papa was. Mr. Linton of Thrushcross Grange, she replied. I thought you did not know me, or you wouldn't have spoken in that way. You suppose Papa is highly esteemed and respected, then? He said sarcastically. And what are you? Inquired Catherine, gazing curiously on the speaker. That man I've seen before, is he your son? She pointed to Hareton, the other individual who had gained nothing but increased bulk and strength by the addition of 2 years of his age. He seemed as awkward and rough as ever. Miss Cathy, I interrupted, it will be 3 hours instead of one that we are out presently. We must go back. No, that man is not my son, answered Heathcliff, pushing me aside. But I have one, and you have seen him before too. And though your nurse is in a hurry, I think both of you and she would be the better for a little rest. Will you just turn this nab of heath and walk into my house? You'll get home earlier for the ease, and you shall receive a kind welcome. I whispered Catherine that she mustn't, on any account, accede to the proposal. It was entirely out of the question. Why? She asked aloud. I'm tired of running, and the ground is dewy. I can't sit here. Let us go, Ellen. Besides, he said I have seen his son. He's mistaken, I think. But I guess where he lives, at the farmhouse I visited in coming from Penistone Crags, don't you? I do. Come, Nelly, hold your tongue. It will be a treat for her to look in on us. Hareton, get forwards with the lass. You shall walk with me, Nelly. No, she's not going to any such place, I cried, struggling to release my arm, which he had seized. But she was almost at the door-stones, already scampering around the brow at full speed. Her appointed companion did not pretend to escort her. He shied off by the roadside and vanished. Mr. Heathcliff, it's very wrong, I continued. You know you mean no good, and there she'll see Linton, and all will be told as soon as ever we return, and I shall have the blame. I want her to see Linton, he answered. He's looking better these few days. It's not often he's fit to be seen, and we'll soon persuade her to keep the visit secret. Where's the harm of it? The harm of it is that her father would hate me if he found I suffered her enter into your house, and I am convinced you have a bad design in encouraging her to do so, I replied. My design is as honest as possible. I'll inform you of its whole scope, he said, that the two cousins may fall in love and get married. I'm acting generously to your master. His young chit has no expectations, and should she second my wishes, she'll be provided for at once as joint successor with Linton. If Linton died, I answered, and his life is quite uncertain, Catherine would be the heir. No, she would not, he said. There is no clause in the will to secure it so. His property would go to me, but to prevent disputes, I desire their union, and am resolved to bring it about. And I'm resolved she shall never approach your house with me again, I returned, as we reached the gate where Miss Cathy waited our coming. Heathcliff bid me be quiet, and, preceding us up the path, hastened to open the door. My young lady gave him several looks, as if she could not exactly make up her mind what to think of him, but now he smiled when he met her eye, and softened his voice in addressing her, and I was foolish enough to imagine the memory of her mother might disarm him for desiring her injury.